Minute. Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Wait. I don't think they can see me yet. Either that or there's a delay. There might be the delay. Hello, everyone. Sorry. What do they say? I forget what to say. Uh, there's an ongoing joke with the apologists about rookie or something like that. Um, anyway, so here I am again, fumbling around with the tech stuff and how to get the stuff going. Um, this is, I believe, my fifth-ish interview, and today I'm very pleased to have Phil with us. He's a moderator on a bunch of streams. Um, you may have seen some of his work. He's very active online, especially with a blog. He's also, I mean, I'm going to call him a spiritual warrior. Um, and he's full of knowledge when it comes to Islam. So, with that, would you like to tell us a little about yourself, Phil?
Yeah, I'm as everyone knows, I'm Phil Horaia. A number of people cannot pronounce the surname, so it's Horaia. So I have been active as an Islam critic and as a moderator for the best part of 8 years. Um, I I have been in the recent past active on Facebook, Twitter, but today in recent months, since for about past 2 years actually, I believe I've been active on my blog, and I've been I've from every few days or so you'll see a new post from me, and which hopefully will benefit people out there. It will give people an insight into Islam, essentially. Now, if I may add this, because it's a thought that just came to mind, there are a good number of people who have their favorite critics. It may be Sam Shamoon, it may be CP, but it's important not to put people on a pedestal. Don't rely on one person. He has all the answers. No one has all the answers. So you have to go to as many people as you can. Even the most humble, most insignificant critic could come out with something that you have not thought about ever. He says something, and you think, oh yeah, I've never thought of that. I myself am like that. I have I've over the past 8 years, I've been listening to various people, and they will say something's blindingly obvious at times, and think, oh, I haven't thought of that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Make a note of it. and I myself have in my blogs say things that other critics have never, to my knowledge, spoken of. So this may be of benefit to people to just pop by, take a look at one or two posts, just in case there's something that has been overlooked. We all overlook things, so
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Especially, yeah, I'm a big person. I'm really big when it comes to the kitchen sink kind of approach to things. To a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you can't go wrong. So I completely agree with you there. And you also mentioned that you did a translation of the Quran, which
yes. I spent about 2 years ago or something like that. I began to think, right, I really there really needs to be like a translation, an accurate as far as is possible with the Quran. It's not, you'll never be able to produce a 100% accurate translation of the Quran, partly because some of the words are so completely obscure, even to scholars, and some of the words are not even Arabic, and so
right.
it's a big mad search. If you're trying to produce a translation faithful to the text, this will mean a lot of searching through tafsir, through dictionaries, lexicons, in order to produce a fairly accurate rendering of a particular phrase or even a word. And for the meanings, you will also need to go to tafsir to have some idea of what the author is trying to say. Now, the Quran in Surah 25:33 speaks of the best tafsir. Now, if it is the best tafsir, the best commentary of itself, it does not do a great job of it. It's meant to be clear. It's meant to be fully detailed, explained. But when you look at the text, you're thinking, what is this? What on earth does this mean? So you go to tafsir for a better understanding of what the best tafsir is saying. So, and yes, I spent about 2 years slogging through my translation of the Quran, going through tafsir, going through different sites dealing with Arabic, in order to try to produce a fairly reliable, fairly accurate translation. Although you'll never have a 100% accurate translation of it ever. Not sure what else I can add there.
No, that's great. Like, and I'm listening to you and I'm thinking that's an excellent point that you make, that, because of so many reasons. Well, in general, translations are never going to be 100% accurate because of the whole cultural thing. There's some words that just don't really translate well. So that, in addition to that, like you mentioned, the Quran does use actual non-Arabic words in it for whatever reason. I guess the ear had a good ear and wanted to, include whatever he heard. And so those don't even translate in Arabic because not even the Muslim scholars know what the heck they are.
It's my understanding that there is even a modern Arabic translation of Quran, so that modern Arabs can understand it.
Right.
But, so they're looking at it. Arabs are looking at it, and they have the same problems as we do, and they're thinking, what is this supposed to mean? We cannot understand it. So it's likely, I haven't read a modern Arabic translation of the Arabic Quran, but I should imagine it's very similar to other translations in that they're not exactly honest translations. Because I know of no Muslim translator who even tries to be honest with the translation. He will add his own thoughts. He will put things in parentheses, and sometimes where there should be parentheses, there are no parentheses, and you think it's part of the text. It is not. So it is my opinion that all Muslim translators are mendacious. They are not 100% honest. They don't try to be honest.
Yeah, that's a very good word for it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would add that that they go out of their way to be dishonest, to mislead. That's part of their thing, especially when things that, as the other apologists say, that are embarrassing or just outright reveal Islam for what it is, or things to that effect. Yeah, and it's a real shame, because another thing that they're pointing out is that someone who's not a native Arabic speaker, who's reading a translation of the Islam, whether it's in English or in other languages, they're completely reliant on these crafty, insidious, horrendous people that are translating the Quran in their language with the intent of deceiving them, of tricking them into coming in. And then once you're in, as we know, you can't get out, like Hotel California, right? I mean, the only way out is death. So, yeah. All right. So speaking of media, so to speak, of text and so on, if you don't mind, I'd like to do a little thing with my guests about things that they enjoy, like their favorites. So I'm not sure if you're a big media guy, but are you like a movie watcher? Do you have a favorite movie?
Films. There are two films that I think they stand out in my mind. Two that I particularly like. There's one of them is Downfall, which treats of the fall of the Third Reich. Okay. And the second one, and the other one would be Limitless. it's Limitless. If you're not certain, if you don't know the plot of the movie, there's a guy. He's like a complete and utter slob. You know, he's going nowhere. He's doing nothing. I'm not advocating taking pills, but in the film, he takes a little pill, which opens his mind up to, you know, makes him kind of, as it were, shall we say, intelligent. And so the things that he's half seen, he may have seen like in glancing, he sees a book, and the information that has gone into his subconscious, he can access. So by the end of the film, to cut a long story short, I suppose, the film gives us the impression that he's on his way to becoming the president of the States. So that's my second favorite film. so
that's okay. That's fascinating. I'm definitely gonna have to. Sorry.
The whole idea of what interests me about that particular film is let's see, is how should I put it? No, I value knowledge. I value intellect myself, and so this film shall we say, resonates with me. You know, being able to use your mind to its maximum, using the information that you have. Now, many years ago, as a much younger man, there was a film. There was a line in it where the character says, "I want it all." And I was thinking, when I was sitting there in the cinema, I was thinking, yeah, I want it all. And so for me, all means all available knowledge, as much as I can absorb, as much as I can use for the benefit of others. So material goods and whatnot, I'm not interested in material goods, but intellectual goods, I am interested in. And the more intellectual goods that I can have, the better. So, and I identify myself as a teacher. Now, if I can teach others, then that would be, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. Yeah, and so you're being the bee, like I think it's Saint Basil, borrowed from ancient philosophers, who said, you know, be like the bee. He goes from flower to flower, extracting only that what's good. Move on. So you're kind of you're saying you go to media as well to kind of take what's good and use it to the benefit of others.
I'm not a great news watcher. You know, I don't spend a great deal of time on news channels or, you know, watching news, reading newspapers. But but what information I can come across which I deem useful, I make a note of. Now, there's a Dickens character who says, "When found, make a note of." Now, I so firmly believe in whatever small, if it's, you know, the smallest nugget of useful information, write it down. Buy a notebook, write it down. You don't know if it's going to be useful. You don't know if you can use it later in the day. Now, so I have numerous notebooks filled with notes of various descriptions, and I feel that most people would benefit if they just invested in a notebook. They're very cheap. Buy a notebook, buy several notebooks, fill them with whatever information you come across. I've often mentioned this as a moderator. You know, make notes. I'm in the chat with everyone else, and I know that something beneficial could come up, and sometimes very beneficial material comes up, and I say, make a note of it. You know, grab a notebook, write it all down. And some people think that's a great idea, and others, they're more for entertainment. I'm less for entertainment. I'm more for education, learning, and I encourage others to learn as much as they can.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. I mean, I do know that to some that might sound a bit eccentric or weird or tedious even. Mm-hmm. But for the American football fans out there, that's something I actually employed myself watching a head coach, an NFL head coach that was known for doing just that. He would carry a notebook on the sideline during the game, and he would always take notes on every play. And after a while, he got questioned about it, and he said he learned it from some other coach. And he writes either something positive or something negative, but whatever it is, he makes a note, so that way when the game's over, he doesn't have to rely on his mental limitations, mental constraints, or his flawed memory. It has everything written down, documented, and it gives him more clarity and better insight on what transpired, so he can analyze everything much better, much more effectively. And yeah, he got hired by what's known as probably the greatest coach in NFL history, which I'm not a big fan of myself, for the New England Patriots. I call them the ugly paper champions. And he actually hired Dom Capers years down the road as an assistant, as an advisor. And lo and behold, he ended up adopting that strategy. Next thing you know, you would see him as well as head coach on the sidelines taking notes. And to this day, he still does that. So, yeah, I mean, again, and I used it myself as a head coach, and it was very effective. I mean, well, I wasn't a head coach. I apologize. Just lied a bit accidentally. I was an assistant coach myself, and I coached under Coach Goodwin, Joe Goodwin, Coach Goody, he called him. And even he was like curious, like, what are you doing? What are you writing? And I explained to him, what, I'm either taking notes, which were helpful, which helped us throughout the season. And we went undefeated, by the way, that season. We went from a losing franchise to an undefeated team. And I like to think I had something to do with that. Or I just write gibberish. And I do that for the sake of psychology, just so the players, when they see me, writing something down, they could think, oh, you know what, I better be on my toes and give my best performance because I'm being watched and everything I do is being put on permanent record, right? Just like the Violent Femme song. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, long story short, I agree with you 1,000%. Like, I do take notes, but not like the way you're saying. And that's one thing I admire about women in general. They're very good about keeping journals, right? Generally speaking. So that's something like you're saying, keeping journals, keeping notes about daily things or random things, and then being able to reflect on it. I think is very powerful too. All right. So speaking of Violent Femmes, let's go to music. Do you have a favorite kind of music or favorite songs?
When it comes to music, my taste is very, very broad. Now I can appreciate, shall we say, music from 1,000 years ago, right up to the early 21st century. English language songs from the 21st century, though, mostly fairly disagreeable for me personally. Up until the early 21st century, music can be fairly good. Right up until, say, there was some good English language music in the 90s, very, very good. But then we hit the 2000s, and music, and it has often been said that it all sounds alike. Music all sounds alike. But yes, there is a point to say. There. It's, for me, most music is absolutely dreadful. I feel, I listen to it and I'm thinking, no. I do have something of an issue too when it comes to, like, shall we say, love songs, because yeah, some of them can be beneficial, but the whole theme, I mean, there's the whole, shall we say, whole universe out there. There are many different themes, many topics that can be explored in song, but people should be wary about romance, in my view. And one minor thought is, when you hear the word "yeah" in a song, then I'll begin to think, doesn't have anything better to say than "yeah." I mean, so much that you can put into a song, and then the singer says "yeah." How profound.
Yeah, it's some might think of what you're saying is a bit extreme, but I'm actually agreeing with you. And this has come from someone who was, at one point I was even a DJ. So yeah, in that experience, I learned that for sure you can manipulate people, crowds, through music. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But eventually I realized just, I mean, especially lately, just how crafty music makers are, and the way you just touched on, which is this whole nonsensical gibberish kind of sound. um, why are they adding in these fillers? These yeah,
Yeah.
or these words, or even the lyrics themselves. When they sing it, so much of it is I mean, it's you can't understand what they're saying. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of curious. I mean, is it accidental? Are they doing it for the sake of the art, or are they just trying to kind of conceal um, what the message is that they're putting out there, which they've done for decades upon decades, generation after generation. Yeah, I don't want to bore people to death, but if you look into the actual history of at least Western music and how it's evolved from um, Orthodox hymnology or Byzantine chant
Mhm.
on to opera and so on, and then that, the inclusion of African drum beats and to what we got to today, which I'm not even talking about the 21st century, even before the turn of the century. 90s music got really crazy. It was all about, extreme sex, sodomy,
Mhm.
um, uh, polygamy, or, just having all kinds of crazy relationships. And also, of course, the murder, the gangster rap, and, you know, just it was also diabolical. I mean, it just got really crazy. And today it's just elevator music. It's just techno elevator music, like you said. It just there's nothing really much out there that you want to hear, even artistically speaking. It's just painful to the ear, or dull at best,
Mhm.
in my opinion. But yeah, if you put it all together, I mean, we've definitely deviated from its origins, which was to praise, to make a joyful noise unto the Lord.
Mhm.
Definitely something we need to be aware of. On that note, I am going to plug again my favorite song, which is the Commodores' "Jesus Is Love."
I haven't
Um,
heard that one. I don't think.
yeah, I'm not sure if it's gospel or not. I'm not really familiar with Protestant music, so I can't really say. But it's from a band, the Commodores. They weren't exactly religious. In fact, if you look for their videos of this song, you might see them wearing some kind of crazy uniforms, the 60s, or I should say the 70s kind of flamboyant, kind of gayish kind of look, or demonic, a combination of both. And they're singing Jesus is love, so it's kind of surrealistic. But yeah, it's a great little song, in my opinion. Sums it up really well. All right, so let's go to expressions. Is there a favorite expression or expressions that you kind of go to?
Uh, as in
Well,
what?
something. Sorry, go ahead.
Don't know. No, proceed. What did you have in mind?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much anything. Like so that's why I use the label expressions. Like anything I will fall under the umbrella. Like for instance, I've been using the term or the expression "all's well that ends well" since my adolescence.
Yeah. Ah. In my case, sometimes I'll find, certainly in public, I will come out with the expression "caramba." Um, it really replaces something else that I might have used, So, yeah, I'm not sure what else I really, what kind of expressions I really use. Sometimes I will come out with different, probably different phrases and expressions, but bring them to mind right now, something else.
Right. Well, what about a biblical quote?
Biblical quote. One of my, well, shall I say favorites? One that immediately springs to mind is from, I'm not sure what translation it is actually, but it's based on the book of Judges. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. It does not rhyme in the Hebrew at all. But and I don't know what translation that is actually is, but it's from the passage in Judges where Samson has just killed a lion, well, I shouldn't say just killed. He's killed a lion. He comes back, I believe, later on. He finds honey in it, and he uses these motifs as his riddle for the Philistines for at his wedding. And he says, if you can work out this riddle, then I will give you something like 30 suits of clothing, and the Philistines they don't want to lose out. So I'm not sure what they forfeit. Probably the same thing, but they don't want to lose. So they go to his wife, put pressure on him, on her, and eventually they find out the riddle. And anyway, but so that expression, that little biblical phrase, immediately came to mind.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard that one before, to be honest with you. Not that too
Out of
well-versed.
out of the eater came something. Hang on. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it, to be honest with you. That's intriguing. We do have a couple of people that are poking fun at your accent, I guess. Sahi, is that like a kind of a dialectic or British type of accent, or what?
It's just that they're being humorous, really. Yeah, Sahih
Okay.
accent, and the
Like
accent I do have isn't. It can't be the best, really. Now it is somewhat modified. It's not like strictly a southern accent. It's not. See, many years ago, I spoke with a much stronger regional accent. Yeah, as Janet says, Brummie accent. But I decided, right, I am going to smooth it out a little. I'm going to try to make it sound more southern, more London. So in the natural Birmingham speech, you got short A's, but in southern speech, the A's are longer. So I've adapted to a degree the speech you'll hear down south. But I still need to do some work on my accent. For me, it is dreadful when I hear it.
really?
It's dreadful. Yeah.
As an American, I got to say I enjoy it. So then there's that. Yeah, I'm kind of curious about the chat. I guess I should have asked sooner what some of their favorites are, especially their expressions, if they want to share that. All right. So, we covered music, movies. You did mention that you don't watch the news.
No, usually, occasionally, if I may be channel flicking, go just flicking through the channels, and then I'll see the news. Then I may pause for a few minutes especially if there is an interesting piece of information there. I mean, I was wondering. I was beginning to think terrorism today. Actually, as I was coming back from an appointment, there were multiple ambulances outside a shopping centre, and there was at least one police car there, and I immediately began to think, will this be on the news? Is this a terrorist incident, or is it just someone gone nuts? Goodness knows what actually happened.
Yes, I stopped watching the news about a decade ago. At this point, I'd say over a decade ago, with a certain court case, which I've discussed before. It was the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case, and I saw during that case, I watched every hour of the case live, and throughout the day, like even during the court break, the lunch break, they were just on every channel spinning the literally exact opposite of what was taking place, and it was not just a small thing. This was like a national incident in the United States where they were pushing for racist violence. This anti they're calling it European now, so I guess white is only limited to Europe for some reason suddenly. So yeah, it was insane, and the thing was. So if you're not familiar with the case, Trayvon Martin was the victim, according to mass media, and George Zimmerman was the aggressor. He was a neighborhood watchman who ended up shooting Trayvon Martin and killing him. So Trayvon Martin, of course, is black. That's why I got, this national media was used during the Obama election, or that during election year, of course, re-election. It just so happens this George Zimmerman ended up waiting in prison for about a year until that election year. But what they were doing in the meantime was they were doing like a national manhunt for anyone named Zimmerman. I mean, you had celebrities going on there and doing that. I mean, now for us, it seems like the norm because they've been doing this for a decade. So pitting us against each other over absolute backward lies, literally, for a decade now. So for a generation now, we've been bombarded with nothing but the same nonsense. And so now it's become the new norm. But back then it was like, whoa, what is this craziness? Especially if you actually watched any of the actual trial instead of just the sound bites they used to twist around and get people to start engage in this crazy behavior. So yeah, I mean, and then after that, I took a bus ride all up the East Coast from about Florida to New England, and during this bus ride, at every terminal we stopped, they were showing the same news network. And at that point, that news network had gone from actual news to 15-minute cycles of the same headlines over and over and over again. And so I got a taste of reality going throughout the nation of just how everyone everywhere was being conditioned with the same nonsense over and over and over again, nonstop. And so combining the two, I was like, man, news is not only news, it's just outright evil propaganda. Something that people need to be made aware of and stay away from. Do you guys have that kind of issue in the UK? Because let me premise that question with saying that Americans often say, if you want to watch the real news, you watch the BBC.
Well, here the BBC is a very biased channel when it comes to news. They will tell you what they want you to hear. What they will try to put a particular opinion over. They'll try to sell you a particular opinion, a particular view. But of course, BBC is not alone. All the channels are that way. They will sell you. They will try to sell you a view. If not on the news, it'll be even in advertising or in the programming. So it's rather tendentious, their attitude. There may be a storyline which they want you to accept, and I'm looking at it and watching and saying, and I'm thinking, no, this is unacceptable. But this is the nature of TV here.
And unfortunately, there's so many, especially the young, the influential, that don't really know that much about the world yet, that watch the stuff and completely buy into it, unaware of the reality and what it's doing to them. Yeah, but I just heard recently on Gab, the outlaw online platform. In fact, the creator of Gab has recently been called to Congress because he's such a threat for allowing people to express themselves freely. So yeah, on Gab I saw that the BBC actually has some kind of demonic statue or something. It's right in front of their building. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what the statue is. I don't have anything available to share that with the audience, but I'm sure if you do some research, you'll find out that's true. Very Masonic, very satanic. And there's a lot of that going on, I find, in media, including online. Yeah, so let's get into it. So you've been on speaking of which, different channels, different Christian apologists. Yeah. Janice says, read between the lines. Amen. So where do I go from here? You want to tell us about some of your favorites, if I can say that.
Favorite channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. One of my very, very favorite channels is DCCI.
DCCI. Okay.
Yeah,
Why DCCI?
It is a brilliant channel, in my opinion. Now, and Hatun Tash, she is. If there's anyone who can be called a saint. She's a saint,
Yeah,
in my
getting
opinion.
stabbed helps that.
She is, as I don't know if should I say this? I don't know, but this is how I feel. I feel that she's, psychologically, shall we say, like as hard as nails. She so many times she has been to Speaker's Corner. She has, stood her ground. She has been up against whom the Muslims would consider the best Darwinists, apologists, as they would probably call them, the missionaries. Well, they wouldn't call them missionaries. And she has been assaulted, nearly murdered so many times, and yet she has kept going back to Speaker's Corner. Never mind the threats to her, and she just keeps coming back and back and back. She is if anybody can learn from a person, they can learn so much from her. I greatly admire her. I really do. She wouldn't like me saying that probably, but that's my view. Yeah, she doesn't like praise much, and I tend not to praise people. But when I see someone doing the work that she has done, then I've got to say, yeah, that is commendable. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know how you feel about puffing people up. There's a real, you don't want to corrupt them. You don't want to destroy them by, or spiritually destroy them by building up their ego to a place where they deviate from God. That's the whole thing of puffing people up. The danger of it. And I've been there myself, so yeah, it's a real struggle. But in the same breath, sometimes, especially when people are being attacked that way, it's good for us to prop each other up and encourage each other too.
Sometimes people will say, well, shall we say, praise is too strong a word, regarding when I'm moderating, somebody will say something along the lines of, for want of a better word, praise directly towards me. And I'm thinking, how do I respond to that? So usually I don't actually respond to it at all. I just think, okay, great. It's great that you appreciate what I'm doing. And, let's carry on moderating. But personally, I wouldn't be able to, I doubt I'll ever be as good as, say, like Hatun Tash. I won't be on their level ever, probably, because there are some brilliant people, and then there's just I don't consider myself brilliant or anything like that. I just consider myself, I don't know, just a little lower than some of the best out there.
So it's safe to say you're humble.
I'd like to think that I'm humble.
Yeah, you're definitely humble. So, to that end, like, is there, just in case I forget, I'm really bad with these things about promotions and so on. Are there things that you want to promote that I didn't include in the description that you're working on? We talked about your blog and the translation. In addition to that, are there other things that you work on?
At the moment, I don't have any. At the moment, I'm pretty much concentrating on my blog, although I am keen to take my online work onto the streets, as it were. Now, to take it to these Darwagandist stalls. Now, when I have time, when I have an opportunity, I hope to have. I have had many over the years, many online debates in the comments sections. Now I want to, if possible, to take it, make it live, as it were. Take it to the stalls. Ask the floggers of Quran how they thought about this and have thought about that, and that will be my next step, most likely. Being able to, going from arguing online to arguing in life.
That is really cool of you. I think it's awesome. I commend that and encourage it and pray. We should all pray that that goes well. No, and I know for myself. I mean, everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. I'm not the best public speaker, but I'm also not the best person when it comes to keeping my patience when I'm being assaulted. you know? So I arguably might not be the best Christian. Thank you, Repent. I might be the best Christian representation for that because everyone expects Christians to do nothing but turn the other cheek. Yeah, Genesis, go for it, Phil. We definitely need more people out there on the ground. And I know I wouldn't qualify because I would just lose my cool, even with words, but especially if people are posturing like Muslims like to do, and I would get threatened, I might just blank out and lose it and just attack them. So that wouldn't be good. So not everyone is able to refrain themselves to the degree like some people do, like Hatun and Avery is another one of my favorites. And so on. Another one, Hussein, Steve. God, I love that guy to death. He's got such a huge heart. I mean, just so many people out there that are doing such good work. Bob's another one. He's out there. I guess he's a vet, doing that. Been out there for a while. Jay Smith, and people like that have also been out there for a while. I wasn't aware of. So there've been people have been doing this for a while, which is, I mean, it's a blessing, but it's also inspiring to other people. To not be afraid to be out there, even if it's just something like a social fear, like what are my friends going to think of me, or fear of the typical Islamic reaction. But yeah, also representing the Christian faith, which is going out and doing these things, preaching the gospel regardless. It's amazing. Sorry, I'm babbling. All right, so so let's talk about that, the Islamic stance. So the previous stream, the intention was to talk about salvation and works, and what is works, what does that mean exactly in Christianity, and how important is it? But since you're here and you're a bit of an expert on Islam, could you share with us your perspective on the Islamic belief when it comes to works and its role in Islamic salvation, if there's such a thing?
Well, I can offer, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert. I know as much as I know. I'm still learning, I feel. But when it comes to the idea of salvation and Islam, now, going by memory, the Quran, correct me if I'm wrong, says that, let's say, correct me if I'm wrong, Allah forgives whom he wills. So he will forgive some and not forgive others. But it's always, but as there is no free will in Islam, everything you do is willed by Allah. So you cannot will unless Allah wills, which means the act that you have committed is not actually committed by you. You're like a marionette. You're like a character in a stage play, following a script. So if I pick up this pen now, I've now got a pen in my hand and I'm twiddling with it and whatnot. It's not my choice. Allah has written this for me. And if I commit an assault on someone, for example, as in the street, I'm not doing that. I'm not committing that offense. Allah has written that for me. It's made me do it. If we go to a hadith in which we go to a hadith and we read about Adam, an encounter with Adam and Moses. Moses is blaming, if I've got the order right here, Moses is blaming Adam for his action, and it's your fault that we're not in the Jannah and all. And Adam says, "Well, nothing I could do about it. I was made to do this. I was caused to do this 40 years before my creation. And so Adam could not do anything. He's not blameworthy in his action. So so when it comes to forgiveness, it should be Allah who asks for our forgiveness, because he has made us do this, if Islam is correct, of course. And so there is another hadith which says that when it comes to deeds, they don't matter really, because a number of Sahaba, or at least one Sahaba, approaches the founder of Islam, and it says, and there's a discussion at any rate, and he eventually says, it says in effect that, unless Allah had wrapped me in his mercy, then none of my deeds are worth anything. They're absolutely fruitless whatsoever. Now, there's a mistranslation in the English hadith that I'm thinking of. Deeds alone. There is no alone in it. It's just the deeds. So a person, he will do his deeds. He can do as many deeds as he likes, but unless Allah wraps you in his mercy and decides, right, you're Jannah bound, then you can do good deeds all day long. It's no good. It doesn't matter unless Allah decides that you're going to the Jannah, then you'll be going to Jahannam, which is hell. It's so there's no real mercy. There's no real there's no real mercy in Islam, and deeds are insignificant. There is another hadith that says that you could be practicing the deeds of the people of Jannah like all your life. You could be doing it all your life, and likewise you could be practicing the deeds of the people of Jahannam, which is hell. But then when you're a cubit away from death, then Allah makes you commit to the deeds that will send you to the Jannah or to Jahannam. So whether you'll be blessed or whether you'll be damned, Allah works with deeds. He uses deeds as what's the word I'm looking for? As a pretext for sending you where he wants. If Allah wants you to commit a petition, wants to say in the case of Adam, he was booted out of the Jannah. Why? Because Allah made you commit to the particular deeds, made him commit the particular deeds that he did, namely literally taste a tree. Doesn't say anything about eating fruit. It says actually tasting a tree. So Adam tasted a tree for some reason, and that deed that he was made to commit was the pretext for Allah's expelling him from the Jannah. When it comes to expelling, actually, this has just come to me. Now, who expelled our first parents from the Jannah? Was it Allah, or was it Iblis or Satan? There is one or two texts that speak of Iblis expelling Adam. So, which is it? Did Allah expel Adam and Eve? Was it Iblis, or did they both do it? Did they both expel?
Yeah, that's there's two things I want to say about that.
Yeah.
One is that it turns out that the Islamic path of salvation is very much like what we see here, roller coaster ride. You can't really, there's no direct path, or you don't really know what a path is, and it's all over the place. And it's at a whim of Allah, whoever that is. But I also like how CP likes to talk about this one too.
Mm-hmm.
How if Allah deceives you, then oh well. But not only that, it's the fault of the person who's deceived. That's your problem. So Um, you know, so with all that going on, how do Muslims put their faith in something that, I mean, just obviously chews them up and spits them out? I don't understand that. What's the motivation there?
What Muslims have been brought up with the idea that Islam has Islam is the truth from pretty much the cradle. So the parents will tell them this is truth, this is the way we are, and then there's the ummah, their neighborhood, as it were. They'll be saying, yes, we're right. Everyone else are kuffar, and then there's a problem that most Muslims will never open the book that they consider sacred. They won't open it, as though they fear what they might read. So that and those who do, take a peek, they will see things, but then they will do mental gymnastics. And it says it doesn't really mean what this actually says. The Quran is clear, it's detailed, but it doesn't mean, it is not clear and it's not detailed, and it means something completely different from what I'm reading. People are afraid. Muslims are afraid of thinking too much. They are afraid, in my view, of actually reading Quran for themselves, because there does seem to be a genuine fear. There seems to be a thought in their mind: if I read this book, I will see something that I don't like, and it will shake my faith.
Yeah, that's something that we see over and over and over again on the streams, on the apologist channels, where the Muslims come on. But in addition to all the other behaviors, we will see them just one way or another display this absolute fear of the truth, of the reality. Especially when it comes to things that you read straight out of the Quran or Hadith or whatever it is. I mean, they do whatever they can to avoid it. It's scary. It's disturbing.
Yeah. Personally, I would say, I'm not trying to find the right words, but for me, I will read a text and I will say, right, this is what it says. If there is an internal difficulty in it, is there a way of reconciling it? Perhaps there is something that I've overlooked that actually makes sense of this text. But if there isn't, then they should be rejected. If there's no way of making sense of a passage, no way of reconciling what you read with something more, I don't know, more cogent, shall we say, elsewhere, then if you really feel it's false, then you reject it, and you don't hang on to it, and so you don't make excuses, you don't reinterpret it. And there's if I may add this, actually, now that I've said interpret, I've actually been speaking to a Muslim about this, because he's taken issue with my understanding of Surah 3:7. Now, the text, he would like to think that the only people who can understand Quran are Allah, not that Allah's a person, Allah and the firm in knowledge. But the text itself does not allow that at all. Only Allah knows the interpretation, as it is said. So, the scholars are only saying, we have believed in it. All is from our Lord. That's it. Allah knows the interpretation, and the next idea is those firm in knowledge, whoever they are, have believed in it, and all is from our Lord. Now, there are two ways of understanding this. Knows the interpretation. Allah has come across someone's interpretation, and which would mean that Allah is dependent upon an interpretation for the book that it is supposedly the author of, or only Allah can interpret it. And Allah is supposed to be the author of the book, and that's a problem. What author interprets his own book. He will interpret someone else's book. Now, I could pick up a book from Sartre, and I will interpret it. I will try to gain an understanding of what I'm looking at. But if you've written the book, you already understand what you've written. So at least you should have. So what author actually interprets his book, or what author needs someone else's interpretation of the book that you've supposedly written? Not that there is any evidence, that internal evidence as such, that Allah actually authored Quran. I challenge Muslims to show me which passage explicitly says that Allah authored Quran. I want to see that name. Allah said this. There are many passages that says that introduce have the introductory word say X, Y, Z. But who is saying the say? Muslims would say it's Allah. The word Allah does not appear there at all. It does not appear. So Muslims, if you're listening, show me where Allah explicitly says, this is my word. The challenge for the day.
That's that's a great summary of the catch-22 when it comes to Islam. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we see so many parallels between Islam and the occult, like these, for example, the Satanic Church out of California. Again, I've talked about this before, but I think it's quite significant, and we see it very clearly these days. This whole idea of uncreation, which is doing the exact opposite of creation, biblical creation, or the exact opposite of the commandments, or what Christ wants, to undo reality. So basically what they're pushing for is this chaos or anarchy, which is prominent these days, especially through media, which influences culture. And what we're looking at right now is this chaos warrior, this idea of a chaos warrior, which we see in a lot of these different games and so on. This is from a game called Warhammer, which was really popular online, but was also a board game. There was another one. Actually, again, it's just all over the place. This idea of this chaos warrior, or this warrior that's pushing chaos or fighting through the power of chaos. And we especially saw that, I don't want to change the topic too much, but it's kind of on topic. These past few years with the whole coup 19 lockdown nonsense, which were all diabolically backward, extremely detrimental. We're forced by law with extreme prejudice to do things that were the exact opposite of what is healthy for us, like putting on a muzzle, which is all wrong on so many levels. And we see this, like the harm, the mental harm is done to this day, where people are running around with these things, whether they need them or not. Need them as in being forced by law to wear them. Yeah.
Well, yeah. When it comes to the mask, I still see people wearing them today. There's no societal pressure on anymore to wear it. Yet I do see the odd person actually wearing it. Seems a bit odd to me, but that's if she wants to wear it, it's no more problem. Personally, I've never worn it myself. I've never worn one, even at the height of the pandemic.
Right.
And people so there will be some people who have a problem with me for saying that. You should be more responsible and what have you. But when the supermarkets were packed with people wearing masks and whatnot and having breathing difficulties over it and all that, I always said, somebody asked me about it. I said, yeah, I've got it on me. I always carried it, never wore it. And so if somebody would stop me, I'll say, yeah, I've got it right here. And there was an exemption actually on health grounds for not wearing it. So you could say, as long as it was true, of course, so you could say, right, I've got health issues, I'm exempt.
Yeah. So I took us to COVID, but I think this is important. I think our focus was to be on Islam today, particularly on works, but I think this whole works thing is and the COVID dictates.
Yeah.
I mean, they're related, and it's an important discussion. Like, since we're still suffering from it, some places are still doing things like forced vaccinations or toxic serums for children,
Yeah.
of all things, and all these crazy things. And so this is a discussion that needs to be had for the sake of works, so we can combat this evil, this diabolically backward uncreation, this chaos, this anarchy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, again with the muzzles, the fact that people are wearing it as a form of protection in their head, this OCD behavior, shows just how backward it was. Like the masks are supposed to protect patients from the surgeons. So whatever they might be breathing out, if they have an open wound, they're not as exposed to it. It doesn't stop it altogether. Even they know that.
Yeah.
And they also know that you only wear these things temporarily. And not too long ago, a couple of decades ago, I was also a volunteer at a hospital. A couple of days ago, back then they would incinerate them. They would just set them on fire. Now they process them, they clean them, they put them under the chemicals properly, whatever. But yeah, I mean, at its very core, if you know anything about anything, you realize that from onset that the mask was a bad idea. It was ineffective at best. So, but it became this whole other thing, including there's some arguments that it represented this Masonic, this satanic practice of wearing this faceless mask thing, and this creature, this demonic creature, this thing that they have, a muzzle. And you see that in media with these demonic figures that are always kind of faceless, they don't have a mouth and all that. You see that through all kinds of media. That's not accidental. That's just their archetype. And it also plays into this whole Baphomet, they, them, legion phenomena, which is also prominent today. And it's something that I was expecting to happen, for people to start professing, yeah, okay, we're legion. There's popular figures right now that are admitting or confessing publicly that, yeah, that's me. I'm legion. I'm being demonic. So, bringing it all back to Islam. Is it a coincidence that those people, they, them crowd, if you want to call them the left or whatever you want to call them, however you want to label them, I just call them anti-Christians to keep it simple. Is it a coincidence that they show solidarity with Islam?
What we might call the left have traditionally jumped onto many, many different kinds of bandwagon, but one of the biggest fashions now is Islam. Now, Islam is good. Islam is lovely, and it's great to have a Muslim mayor, etc., etc. But one of the left's other bandwagons is what is known as LGBTQ, but they are in conflict. So now the left cannot support both. Now, if you're supporting homosexuals, this will offend the Muslims. So, and Muslims are more vociferous. They're more likely to say homosexuality is wrong. It is abomination. They're more likely to say that. But you cannot support two opposing teams. These are two opposing teams, as it were. And, you got to back the one or the other. And really, if you back the one, you are opposing the other. If you back the homosexuals, then you are effectively opposing the Muslims. If you back the Muslims, they will be opposing the homosexuals. And we do know of a few things that Muslims have done to homosexuals, such as a flying lesson without a plane. So they are two opposing teams, and you cannot really support both of them. So,
yeah, to quote CP, isn't it that he always starts something with, isn't it that? So yeah, I think it was Hadith. It usually shows Hadith. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Hadith, and they're usually Sahih, so there shouldn't be any question about it. But there's a couple of hadith that he shared. I actually have in one of my own videos breakdown on Islam, why mass media supports Islam. Please look it up. It's worth an hour and a half of your time. But yeah, he talks about two examples where Muhammad is having queer sexual relations with men, with strange men. So that's something that's not discussed a lot in the apologist circles, but it's definitely worth discussion and questioning. One that is discussed is how he, I don't want to use the word sucked off, that would be taking it, but like sucking the tongue of his grandbaby's, of his grandchild. So, I mean, that's his grandson, which is also male. It's taking the next step to pedophilia with going with the same sex thing too.
There is actually what this has come to mind. There is a hadith in which a Bedouin, he approaches the Muslims, Allah's boss, and says, "You people, kiss boys." And Allah's boss turns around and says, something about, Allah has not put mercy into your heart or something. I mean, what has mercy got to do with kissing boys? I mean, and vice versa. I mean, now I actually have a post entitled "Homosexuality," dealing with the incident of the unnamed Sodom, and I give various ahadith relating to the founder of Islam's own activity. And personally, I am convinced that he was homosexual. He was. Yes, he had wives, but numerous homosexuals are married. They will have a wife or two, but they will still have this tendency. They will still have this tendency, and the ahadith do convince me that he did have this tendency.
Well, I mean, we see that in some cultures, in some Islamic cultures, with the bachabazi, where it's expected. I think it's fair to say. Yeah, this is really. I mean, this is one topic that really gets the blood flowing. So at that point, it gets hard to think, which is another thing. Another reason I appreciate the those that are on the ground, like in it, combating those that go to Speaker's Corner and to the park over there, Balboa Park in California, and so on. Doing that, their ability to keep their calm enough so they can at least think and present a good argument is just it's quite astounding, really cool. But yeah. So my point to all this was that at one point, this is very common with Islam. It's left and right. There's no reality. There's no one actual set thing because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all BS. It's all contrasting BS and whatever goes. And the whole point is to create chaos and to get people to sin. Because, allegedly they're against homosexuality, which is not reality. It's really sexual deviancy. Mm-hmm. But in the other breath, it's all throughout their hadith and so on. So, in their cultural practices. So which is it? It's both. Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, how does that? Let's talk about do a compare and contrast. I mean, is there anything you want to add to the discussion of Islam and its path to Islamic salvation?
I would say that it's fairly inaccurate to speak of salvation in Islam. Now, as we've seen, there's the problem of unless Allah wraps me with His grace, and then there's Adam and the discussion with Adam and Moses, and whether Allah will actually forgive you or whether He says you repented, but now off to hell with you. But so when we look at salvation, if we look at the Quran, we'll find that there's so many similarities between hell and what people mistakenly call heaven, in the Islamic context. It's the Jannah. It's not heaven. Don't use the Christian term. It's not heaven at all. Now, the denizens of hell, they are driven there, which means they're going there against their will. They are presumably they're actually on earth, and hell is actually on earth, and they've been driven towards it. This hell has gates on it. It has guards on it. And if we look at the Jannah, the denizens of the Jannah, which is supposedly, which most people call the Islamic heaven, is not heaven at all. Now, they are driven, those destined for Jannah are driven there, just like the denizens of hell. They are forced to go there as though they're headed somewhere they did not want to go. There are gates there. Okay, we can say, yep, there may be gates there for architectural reasons, but there are also guards there. So there's so many similarities between the two. And there are also a hadith in which the angels themselves are killed off by Allah. At the end, Allah is saying, I am the king, because when he's wiped them all out. What is he the king of? King of corpses. Now, if there's no hope for the angels, what hope is there for anyone in the Jannah? And there are passages in Quran that speak of along the lines of what like say, I will see if I can find an article actually which will explain my my thinking.
Sure. Yeah, something that CP likes to talk about is how, I'm basically
Right.
on the back of that. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought in the middle of talking. My memory is not what it used to be. I think I've been doing a little too many passive activities online. I'm one of the biggest antagonists of mass media, yet I'm one of its biggest users. So, anyway, yeah. Sorry, what were we just talking about?
It's about the permanency of Jannah and Jahannam. Now, if I can find the right passage. Now, a useful article is Quran contradiction: will people stay in hell forever or not? And there are strong suggestions that it may not be forever. Neither will be forever. So extinction of those in the Jannah and those in hell. Now there's a passage here, Surah 11, 106 to 108. It reads, those who are wretched shall be in the fire. There will be for them therein nothing but the heaving of sighs and sobs. They will dwell therein for all the time that the heavens and the earth endure, except as thy Lord willeth. And it goes on and on and on. They will dwell therein for all the time that the heavens and the earth endure, except as thy Lord willeth. And so, but correct me if I'm wrong, that there are more explicit passages. 78, 21 to 23, Assad begins, on that day, verily hell will lie in wait for those who deny the truth, a goal for all who want to transgress the bones of what is right. In it shall they remain for a long time. So they may not stay in hell for a long time, and they may not stay in the and there are other passages that speak of in similar terms to the Jannah. So let's see if I can find them.
So what I like about this is this especially disarms all those Quran only Muslims that want to say we can't use hadith because of hadith or whatever. But you're now quoting the Quran, so it's undeniable, so to speak. Boy, yeah, I got to go back to Thaddeus's reference to a recent study about how the brain has changed because of our technology. Our ability to think long term has really been devastated. and so even the shape of our brains has changed because of it. Lost in space. That's about right. So I'm always like in thought, but I can't seem to keep thoughts for very long.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
There's a passage here, Surah 6:128. The fire be your dwelling place; you will dwell therein forever, except as God willeth, except as Allah wills. You may abide, you may be burning forever, unless Allah says that you're out. And the same for the Jannah. There are similar passages there. And what else? So there are no guarantees at all for anyone in Islam, not even for the angels who will be wiped out for some reason. Allah, I mean, the angels are meant to be righteous, but they're going to all be killed and wiped out. What hope is there for human beings? There's no hope for them. You cannot have hope under such a deity. You cannot. It's just Allah is called the great deceiver, the best of deceiver. That's it. So if the author is saying Allah is the best deceiver, there are passages that say that Allah will, Muslims will go, even Christians and Jews, and even Sabians, they're going to the Jannah. There's no fear upon them, nor shall they grieve. But as the author is saying, Allah is the best of deceivers, and this is supposedly Allah itself saying this, then it is saying that it is the best of con men. Can you trust a con man? Right. My late father used to say, sometimes you can trust a thief, you can never trust a liar. So if Allah is a deceptive kind of creature, how can you trust it? How can you say, I am definitely going to Jannah, or you don't know. You really don't know. It's as similar as like that hadith I mentioned earlier. You may be a cubit away, that is 18 inches or so, from paradise, and then Allah decides, right, I need a pretext to damn him. I will make him do the deeds of the people of hell so that he goes there. No guarantees whatsoever. You can be as good as gold, as it were, from the cradle to the grave, but then suddenly you do something evil, like be kind to a Christian, and then you're damned. So you're not going to the Jannah, you're going to Jahannam, you're going to fry. And so there's no guarantee of salvation whatsoever, not for anyone. Now, the founder of Islam himself, Surah 46:9, I believe it is, he said, I don't know what will be done with me or with you. I have no idea if Allah's messenger, Allah's prophet, whether I will be damned or not. And he's meant to be the bee's knees. He's the paragon of everything. He's the great model for mankind. And he himself is saying, I don't know if I'll be damned. Now, if anyone should be saved, shouldn't it be he?
Yeah, that's a whole stream in itself, and then some. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so something that Lloyd is known for doing is talking about the pagan roots of Islam. Mm-hmm. But what I found fascinating, so a while back, a couple decades ago, I created my own board game, Dungeons and Dragons type of thing. It was called Ragnarok, and it was based on the Scandinavian, the Norse mythology's end of the world. And I mean, yeah, I became a buff of Norse mythology in the process, and I see so many parallels between Norse mythology and Islam. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I can't say what influenced what, but I'm convinced that one influenced the other for sure. Uh-huh. At first, I thought maybe it was that Norse mythology influenced Islam, and then I was like, okay, well, you know what, the dates are a bit off. It could be the other way around, but now, I thought you could go either way. So here's the thing with those that are not familiar, is that the Vikings, around the time that the Quran was being written officially, they had already had some settlements in the area of the Middle East, in the northwestern part of it.
Mhm.
So, and that's arguably where the Quran was written. Um, Arguably where this was all generated, arguably. So, yeah, this whole thing about um, the 72 virgins, for example,
Mhm.
going to heaven to be having infinite bananas and having this endless sex and so on. So this is very much like the Norse mythology belief where a Viking warrior dies valiantly, and if you die valiantly, if you're not sick or if you're not a woman or some horrible person, then you get to go to Valhalla and you get to fight over and over again, and you're revived through Idun's golden apples from their tree of life, and you get to drink meat all day. You get to be drunken, and you get served by Valkyries. So, isn't this extremely similar to the Muslim construct of paradise? That's
Well, certainly in the ancient world, there was somewhat similar to today an interaction of ideas, if that makes sense. Different people, there may be traders, and they'd be chatting to their customers, and this is what we believe, blah blah blah, and then they would take part of what they'd heard, and they would perhaps shape it, and then they'd pass it on again, and then all the way down the line, and then eventually you would come up with is conceivably a syncretistic religion that uses elements of what has been heard. Now, Islam is a syncretistic religion. It does take parts from different religions. It takes old stories, like it speaks of the jinn, which in all likelihood the jinn are pre-Islamic mythological beings, and then you got the jinn, you've got al-Buraq, which is probably from Persian mysticism, folklore, or mythology, whatever you want to call it. Then you've got scenes adapted from Old and New Testaments. Well, certainly the Old Testament. You got the Hawariyun, who are supposedly the disciples. The mention is made of them, and then there's talk about the Jannah. Now, the Jannah bit, that I don't know if that was ever a pre-Islamic term, because going by memory, Khadika is the correct word for garden, but the Jannah is used in Quran as in the sense of garden too. But it strikes me as that's the idea of the Jannah as a kind of heaven, shall we say, a place of reward or whatnot, is taken from the Hebrew Gan Eden, which means Garden of Eden. And in Quran, we do read about not just one Garden of Eden, but gardens of Eden. So there are multiple gardens up there of Eden. So goodness knows, 500 doesn't. We really don't know how many there are. So the idea of a like celestial a reward for the righteous called Jannah. That's from Jewish thought. So in Jewish thought, after death, the righteous go to Gan Eden, and which is actually, it's not up but down. It's actually what we could call the underworld, underground. So Gan Eden in Jewish thinking is that part of the underworld reserved for the righteous dead. So probably next door to that is the place for the unrighteous dead. So now, if we look at the Gospels, in the parable of Dives and Lazarus, they actually Dives finds himself in hell. Dives, the rich man, he finds himself in hell, and he looks across and he sees Lazarus. And he says,
right.
and he calls across. They're evidently there's obviously a plane along which they can see one another. And so he calls to Abraham, Father Abraham, send Lazarus so that he can dip the tip of his finger in water and to cool my tongue, because I'm in agony in this place. Now, this does not sound to me as though one is up and one is down. They're on the same level, in my view. So heaven, not heaven now. It's not heaven. It's Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and then there's, for want of a better word, hell. So they're right next to one another. One can look across to the other. But in the story, Abraham says, you can't. There's a big gulf. There's a gulf situated, fixed between you and us. So one can't go over to the other. And so it's probably. I'm not perfectly au fait of Jewish thinking. I should know more, but I still more to learn. But in Jewish thinking, Gan Eden at least is below ground. It's not up where the Muslims have put it, where they put the Jannah. So they've got. So this is an item of Jewish thinking that they've kind of really mangled. They've mangled together to produce something completely different from what was originally understood.
Yeah, just a thought I have, and it's probably neither here nor there, but it's kind of interesting how similar some of the words are in Islam that are supposed to be contrasting, but just phonetically sound alike or similar. And so Jannah and Johanna, two different opposing places, but they, almost sound identical. It's kind of interesting.
In the case of Jahannam, that is a legitimate Arabic form of the Hebrew Gay Hinnom, Valley of Hinnom. Historically, the Valley of Hinnom was, to my knowledge, a garbage dump. So you had whatever garbage the citizens of Jerusalem had, they could throw it there, and that would be burnt. Whatever trash they want to get rid of, they'd burn it there. That's what I've read. It's interesting. So that is the origin of the Jahannam, which most would translate as hell. Historically, hell itself is from Norse mythology. So you had the goddess Hel, and she presided of some area of the netherworlds of now correct me if I'm wrong, there were actually two in Norse mythology, because you were mentioning the delights waiting in Norse mythology. Now I understand that if you died in battle, you'd be taken to such and such a paradise, but if you died, say, at home, you'd be taken to a completely different paradise.
Right.
So I'm not brilliant with Norse mythology, but this is what I've heard.
That's about right. Yeah, it's exactly right. The whole point was to die in battle, and then you're in your place in Valhalla, the golden palace in heaven.
And if I may add something regarding hell too, there was a Norse or Viking goddess called Hel, but there, in English, or in older English, there is also a verb hell. Now, in the past, as I understand, you could speak of helling potatoes, which means you're burying potatoes in soil. That is my understanding of it. So hell. What now? If hell is something underground, we can understand why the word hell might have been adopted from, like, among the Norse. Yes, people underground. This is where the or certainly unrighteous dead belong, and they will be buried or whatever. And the idea of being underground does occur in the Bible. So you hear of Sheol, but we often read about the pit, those who go down to the pit. Now, in my understanding, everyone was taught to go down to the pit, not just the evil. Anyone righteous, unrighteous, it's the common grave of mankind. But in in other mythology, well, I wouldn't say other mythologies, just definitely the wrong word, but in Norse mythology, certainly if you were considered unrighteous, then you might be expected to end below ground. Certainly, yeah.
Well, yeah. So in Christianity, two things.
Mm,
Also Christianity, the idea of rising or going to heaven.
mm,
I mean, something we
yeah.
just celebrated today was I'm sorry, recently was the ascension.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, so this whole north or not north south, but up and down thing
Yeah.
is definitely something that's in Christianity, which intrigues me. I try not to touch a subject because I try not to be completely definitive. Like that's exactly it, because
Mm,
it's just so difficult to understand. But as far as hell goes,
hmm.
you're absolutely right, and it's interesting that Hel is both a character who is the daughter of Loki, by the way.
Hmm.
And Loki is the stepbrother of Thor, which is kind of like Norse mythology's um, Christ figure in some ways. You can
Hmm.
say that his other brother Balder might be, but he's more the prominent character there. But yeah, so Hel ends up dwelling in a place also called Hell, which is a very cold, let's say northern place. It's found in a cave. So it's somewhat underground as well, but it might be considered in a place where that's kind of like the burning ground that you just mentioned. It's kind of like a
Hmm.
place where nobody wants to go. It's so cold there.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we're getting off on a tangent. I'm kind of enjoying the subject of Norse mythology, but my apologies. But the point was that just to tie in the whole, the the pagan influence on Islam, and the idea of how to get this salvation, which
Hmm.
the Vikings, the barbarians, the northern barbarians, and the barbarians of the Middle East, shared. Like they're just believe that if you war, that's how you earn your way to paradise. Um, and that's just it's just horrendous, and it's led to no good. So, what would you say would be something that we haven't discussed as far as comparing and contrasting the salvation in Christianity and um, Islamic, earning your way to Islam's paradise, Jana?
Um, Not entirely sure.
Yeah.
There's probably much that can further be said about this.
Okay. So let me ask you the next question. If
So
you have a few more minutes, if you
I
want to
have,
talk
yes.
about something I'm kind of curious about. I'm arguably new to the apologist circles, and again, I gotta thank Thaddeus L. Even Avery early. He was actually the first one who invited me to a live stream, and suddenly I stopped getting notifications. I think that's a crazy coincidence, by the way. Oh, now that I'm on that subject of wicked www behaviors, didn't you also say that your channel was canceled out of the blue without
Yes, it
explanation?
was. Yes, completely removed. No, now let's see. I had shall we say notification? I don't know if it was actually connected. The day that things started to go wrong, like I don't know if it was just a computer glitch or not, but there's a little bar on the screen. It was flicking up and down, up and down. I could not. I was struggling to keep the screen static. Whether that's something to do with them or whether it's just a just a glitch with the computer. I don't know, but I was packing it, absolutely packing it with references and quote and sugar links. I received a notification later that I've been doing something rather nebulous. Did not tell me exactly what it was, but apparently I should have been aware of something that they had not told me about. And so there is a kind of guideline you can look up, and it says things like spamming and etc. etc. And then I began to wonder are they using my placing? So the spamming is one of the offences. Also, providing links is one of the offences. Now, I was on that day. I was putting numerous links onto a particular channel, and now I begin to wonder: is it the links that they're using as a pretext? So what I do now is, so I lost the channel completely. It completely disappeared, and I was struggling to get it back. And to date, I can only go to YouTube. Will go to my channel on YouTube and access all the features, etc. If by going incognito, I cannot do it the ordinary way, like everyone else does. If there is another way, I haven't quite learned how to do it yet.
Oh boy.
So at the moment, what I do is I go incognito.
Well, let me stop
Yeah.
you there, because you don't want to put out on www what you're doing. Just let's just leave it at that, if you don't mind. I don't want to be the reason you get further issues. But so long story short, you have to take special measures just to do access basic features that everyone else has access to.
And also,
Go ahead.
So what I have to do now, although I can put links into chat on channels that I moderate for, I don't. I simply, which is may well be a better idea. I don't know. I thought about it. What I do is, wherever possible, just post my posts. I just copy paste my posts, and when if people want to know, I can say, right, this is where to find the link to my blog, to save any difficulties down the line. Although down the line, I don't know if there will be more difficulties, whether YT will use some pretext to block me again.
Right.
I don't know.
So let me just say, one of the streams that I used to follow, I kind of stopped. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how a lot of the people that helped me in some way and I looked up to online, especially during the lockdown, particularly during then, turn out to have some questionable associations and practices. And so, but with that being said, one of the folks that I followed was I forget the name of what they call it now, but originally it was Mike the Cop, but they had a different stream, and he was partnered up with someone else. So yeah, something that they talked about, and these are cops or ex-cops that were law enforcement, all kinds of things for years. They had some good insight, and they basically talked about the law and how essentially everything you do is illegal. It's like impossible. In fact, I think even Rekieta Law talked about this too. It's virtually impossible to not break the law on a daily basis because there's so many illegal things. The question is whether or not you're breaking the law. The question is if you're going to get, called out on it, and whether or not that gets enforced. And so this is coming from people that a lawyer who's well versed in the law, cops who apply the law, enforce the law. And so it kind of puts all this in perspective of what we're seeing online. What I've just recently discovered myself is like a lot of the things that I do are actually not kosher with a YouBoob. So, but it passes. But I bet you if I had a larger following than just 50 subscribers, if I got up to 500 or thousands, then I would imagine a lot of things that I do would end up getting much more suppressed. I could be wrong, but I've already experienced this from onset. I've been everything, including this. They removed one of my videos, or a section. It was a 15-minute segment of the 1 hour and a half long video that I mentioned. Why does mass media support Islam? So I broke it up into 15-minute segments at the beginning because I couldn't do in more than 15 minutes. I couldn't upload it as a beginner. So out of all the things that they took down, all of my stuff is arguably inflammatory and graphic and so on and so forth. And step by step, they kept limiting people's access to my stuff. But they took down a segment that had news footage and a video from a doctor of Islamic studies comparing the 550 plus Islamic battles in Europe and Middle East alone, compared to the Crusades that only had a dozen and a half and only lasted a century and a half, compared to 15 centuries of Islam and its tyranny. So anyway, that's all that 15-minute segment had, was these video facts, news facts, and this vetted academic fact. And it was taken down because I was allegedly promoting criminal organizations or didn't provide context.
Mhm.
Talk about diabolically backward, right? And so it seems like that not only do they do stuff, but they have a good laugh about it too. And you can't blame AI for that. You can't blame a glitch or anything like that. I mean, especially when I appeal it and then they deny the appeal. So what I did was I reposted that segment with blocking things out and explaining what happened and so on. But when I found out that I could not post things longer than 50 minutes, I went back and reposted it and put the disclaimer, and it was pretty flagrant about daring YouTube to take it down and censor it. And so far, it's still up. So nobody's watching it, which I'm kind of curious about. But yeah, it's still up. So I don't know. I mean, isn't that curious that 1 minute something's considered one thing and it's all of a sudden considered another? And another thing to that end, to reinforce that idea, well, it can be the AI that they have no control over. And by the way, thanks to DeSantis, has absolute legal immunity. And so you can't hold it, even if you find that something evil about it, you can't hold it legally accountable thanks to DeSantis' government. So I tried to post a video about a recent movie. What was it? I can't think of it now. Some kind of a Disney movie or something. Mario Brothers. It's not Disney. Uh-huh. It's supposed to be the Disney alternative. And look, it's not Disney. And so everyone watch it. So all the people that are supposed to be anti, all this evil stuff are now promoting Mario Brothers movie for some reason, even though it has all the same stuff Disney has. I mean, if you watch it, you can see it has the grooming in it. It has the masculation and, the occult and so on. But they're still promoting for some reason, which is questionable. So anyway, it took me over a week. I kept posting different versions of the edits, trying to upload it to YouTube, but it kept rejecting it. And it would show me the segment that was not being allowed. And so I would go and adjust that. And then it would show me a different segment, and I would go adjust that. And then it'd go back to the other segment, and I'd adjust that in a different way. And it kept going back and forth in different things, and things that were already approved suddenly were being rejected again and again and again. And after spending over a week, finally I got burnt out and just posted what I could, just a little segment, and redirected traffic to the other platforms, which I also post on, by the way. Gab, Rumble, Brightening, or whatever. All these other things I post on. So I strongly encourage people to do this, to question everyone. Mm-hmm. It seems I've seen the pattern that all the content creators that have a big following, I don't want to say all, almost all, to be fair to some, almost all have some kind of questionable affiliations, or do engage in some, absolutely positively all of them engage in some kind of questionable behavior. So, I mean, judge them by their fruits. If there's something wrong, if there's smoke, there's probably fire. But why empower YouTube? Continue to spend your money on YouTube. Spend your time by clicking on and being active on YouTube. You're further empowering their promoters, their sponsors, and so on and so forth. When you can be taking your traffic, your time, your behaviors to different platforms that are not evil. I mean, let's call it what it is. They're not evil. And I'm not saying everyone should stop coal altogether, but why not at least simultaneously go to the other platforms if you're a content creator and also post? if you're doing live streams, also simultaneously simulcast. I unfortunately don't have enough subscribers in these other platforms to simulcast like this stream right now. Otherwise, I'd be doing that. But a lot of people, I'm not going to drop any names, a lot of people are actively choosing to not do that. And there's no reason to. There's no consequences of their not doing that. In fact, there's benefit. I posted, while I was being suppressed by YouBoob, and stop me if I'm boring you to death. I feel like I've just hijacked this whole stream, but I'm on a soapbox right now. I'm on fire, and I feel like I've got to express this stuff. But yeah, at the beginning, I couldn't even. I was sitting there advertising my stuff and all that, and I thought my messages were getting through, and they weren't. I found out when Thaddeus invited me, I started promoting that, and I realized by refreshing that, hey, wait a minute, my stuff is getting instantly deleted. So that was one of many strategies. But as I said, anyway, you go on and on. There's other apologists that are complaining that some of the subscribers by the hundreds will suddenly disappear, which is extremely unusual. This whole thing, like I mentioned in this stream earlier, and I appreciate you responding to that. I mean, is it even appearing where people can see that it's available? Suddenly, I'm not, my streams are no longer available or being advertised on Thaddeus's calendar. I suspect foul play there as well. All these different little things that, okay, you can brush off. Okay, well, maybe it's a glitch, maybe it's a coincidence and all that. But at the end of the day, you got to stop thinking that this is a coincidence. And they're obviously actively, and not just AI, not just this thing that they have no control over, allegedly, but active people are taking a part in suppressing and silencing us. I mean, yeah. So the point is, I strongly encourage people to empower other platforms. If you're a content creator, stay in the belly of the beast. Stay on Twitter and YouTube and all these other vile places. And because once we're eliminated completely, and that obviously is their agenda, then all that's left for these people that are unaware they're being taken advantage of mentally and therefore spiritually, all that's left is this vile, evil, diabolically backward messaging, this conditioning. And so we've got to continue to combat that. And that's my goal as a YouTube content creator, has been to focus on these things like these, there is what is it? This whole give up hope thing, these expressions that they use over and over again. Resistance is futile is one that they use all the time, or it is what it is. I mean, these are all lies. These are all lies that we've all bought into mentally, culturally, because we hear it over and over and over again. And as the Gulag show, if you keep bombarding someone with the same messages, the majority will eventually succumb. That's a scientific fact. And if they don't, then they kill them. Glory be to God in all things. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm done with that little rant. I thank you for your patience and let me say that. But anyways, going back to you and your experience, I mean, you had an entire channel, and you said, how many videos did you have on that?
I don't remember the exact number of videos. They were, to my knowledge, they're probably all CP videos initially. Now, between 14 and 16 of those videos are actually blocked by the government of Pakistan, actually. Yeah, so I've had numerous messages. This video has been blocked because of Pakistan. And okay, but I wasn't. My original channel I just kept for. It's like an archive, really, of CP videos, old videos. People wanted to go to and see an old video, then they could. But I had been thinking about making my own content, but I found it tricky to find the right program to do what I wanted to do. And so I thought, right, I'm going to focus on creating a blog. I will put all my efforts into this project. And so what I've been doing for past 2 years now. And so my original channel was taken down, but I've still got my blog for the time being, unless something happens to that.
Mm.
So yeah.
And you said you were also a moderator for about a dozen different.
For let me see, well, for a handful of channels, yes. So if it's time, if there's no time constraints, like there's one or two channels that's there's at least one channel I'm thinking of. It will often go out far too late for me, British time wise. So I'm thinking, right, I'll I'll come back to it in the next day, and if possible, I'll drop in a few references in the comment section. But when I can moderate, I'm very keen to do so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, please do. And anything that I might have forgotten, let me know so I can add to the description afterward. Um, there is a super group coming up. I think it's
Yes, there
Friday.
is.
Yeah. So if Thaddeus invited me to that, I'm stoked because I haven't been very active lately. I've been focusing on getting this children's book finally done. I'm way behind on everything. That's just an understatement. I'm just trying to juggle too many things at one time, and I'm not doing one single thing very well, unfortunately. So I'm trying to focus my energy on this children's book because I'm financial dire straits, so out of necessity. But it's also, I want to argue that all my works are, intended to help others, and it's something that's can help others. This book that I'm, this is just the FYI. I mean, it sounds like a shameless plug, but really, um, the version I'm doing now, it's a children's story. I'm doing two versions. One I've had completed for years. I'm just waiting on professional editing. So, and that's a novella. It's kind of like a Charlotte's Web kind of book. It's about 100 pages, give or take, depending. And the other one is a picture book, a picture book version, rhyming little picture book. Now, the pictures itself I've shared with different people um, through the years, and they've all been moved, especially the single moms. I mean, literally to tears just by the imagery. So I know it's going to have an impact, and I want both versions, especially the novella, to get out there because it's got more details, and therefore, the reader's much more invested in what's going on. And I've let one person in my life, one special person, read that, and she unfortunately was on the atheist side. So, and she was really moved by it. So, if someone like that can be moved, a modernist that's atheist, then I know it can have a good impact on people. So, yeah, forgive me for asking your prayers and that, so I can get this stuff out there and hopefully make a small difference in the world if I can. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the supergroup. I guess going back to that, I can't wait. I can't wait. It should be good. Let me ask you, if I can, and if you don't want to answer this, that's fine. But I'm definitely opinionated, and I've let the content creators, all of them, know my opinions. I've been blocked, shadow banned by a lot of the creators. Mike the Cop is one of them. He booted me off of Discord, because I was, combating the whole COVID stuff, which I kind of found really horrendous. That's something that kills me, by the way. Especially when the Christians do it, when they're like, you know what, if they don't like what you say, they go, I'm going to block you. I'm going to, like, why are they engaging in this communistic behavior? I mean, I can understand if you're like blaspheming the Holy Spirit or something like that. But if you're calling out evil and they're saying, well, I don't agree with you, I'm going to block you if you keep that up. I mean, what is that about? So, yeah, that's my question to you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that they could be doing better? Let's put it that way. Is that, and if you don't want to answer that, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I'm not
like
sure.
I said, I'm vocal about it, so I don't mind talking about. I think it's important that we're all honest about these things. That's how we, steel. Steel. What is it? Steel, hardened steel, or something to that effect, right? So we need to be honest.
Steel sharpens steel.
Steel sharpens steel. Thank you. I mean, we need to be honest, including about our own sins. We need to be honest about these things so we can overcome them. That's how we do it, in my understanding.
Well, as far as myself is concerned, um, if somebody disagrees with me, then he's welcome to do so. I'm not going to block him for what he says, and I've never blocked anyone in my life, except as a moderator. But if, views are views. I may agree with them, I may disagree with them, but at the end of the day, it's nothing to get upset over, really. I don't feel. I mean, there's plenty of people, like I'm thinking of certain Muslims and their arguments. Plenty of what they say may well offend me, but I doubt I would block him. He will have his say. He will have his say. I know I'll listen to him, and I will choose to accept it or reject it. But that's my attitude. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that's good. Yeah, that suffices. I gotta admit, I don't want to come off as a hypocrite, but I've often confessed that during different streams that I've blocked a lot of people, and I feel guilty about that. Especially watching certain people like Thaddeus and like Steve Hussein, who have this tremendous patience with people to a fault. But then when you see them actually having an impact on people, having so much patience that these people eventually the heart gets softened, it's like, whoa, maybe I need to change my role, my approach to things. And so, yeah, for one thing, the stuff that I post is inflammatory, and what the stuff that I post is not really intended for Muslims. Who I am trying to reach are people that are completely brainwashed. It's called what it is. People conditioned by mass media, and in that part of the process is to expose the lies about Islam. So, and what I do, I try to use their language and their approach, which is to be an online flamer, to be a troll, to get on there and like say all this crazy stuff that's like entertaining and so on and so forth. So I've been using that approach, but it's anti-Christian approach. That's it's not good. So I'm trying to rationalize something that I know as a Christian is not good, but I'm hoping it's having some good impact. I don't know. And I've repeatedly asked different people, including a Muslim, like, hey, give me some feedback. What do you think? I'm not getting it. So I don't know. Should I keep going? I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we can leave it at that. If there's not anything else, I know there's a stream on. Thaddeus is doing a stream right now. Yeah. Is there anything else? Let's do closing thoughts. I think, is there anything that we've left that we didn't mention?
There are many things that might be said, but I think what we have said so far has been fairly good, and hopefully it will have benefited viewers and benefit those who will later hear this stream.
Yeah. Let me ask you this one thing. Okay. So, I mean, obviously Islam is very much about their law, their dictates, even though it's a roller coaster and you don't know what to trust. So, but some Christians believe that we need to not worry about the law ourselves. Like what I'm referring to is Old Testament laws. What is your stance on that, May?
Old Testament laws. Well, many of the Old Testament laws, or moral law, shall we say, like it carries over into the present day, into the Christian way of thinking, because when we look at the laws as such from, let's say, the Mosaic law, there is much that is no longer applicable such as probably not today. Today we would today we would not. I don't know. Execute people, but
You're gonna like stone them to death?
yeah, we wouldn't today. We would not do that because, but much of the moral thinking that isn't law as such has passed over.
Let me ask you on
Yeah.
a note. Forgive me for interrupting.
No
I hope,
problem.
I don't want to break your train of thought there, but
Mhm.
I'm curious about that the death penalty in America. In some states, there is a death penalty. Some states there's not. In the UK, is there a death penalty or not?
There has no the last statute calling for the death penalty was abolished something like the 1990s. So there is no death
Wow.
penalty whatsoever here.
Okay.
Now, my own view regarding the death penalty is I don't like it because there have been miscarriages of justice where the innocent have been executed. Now, and down the line, we have discovered, they're innocent after all. Can you bring them back? No, you can't. Now, I am pro lifelong imprisonment for those who seem to deserve that, murderers, etc. Now, it's because if it turns out that an alleged murderer is not actually a murderer, someone else did it, then he is still alive. If he is serving a lifelong sentence, he's still alive. He's not, and there is chance for him to get out and potentially restart his life. If you're dead, you cannot do that. Now, British history has a number of miscarriages of justice where a person has been considered to be a murderer and subsequently he was discovered nope, he was not, or he was like mentally incapacitated. We cannot. Back in the 1950s, for example, there was a chap. He was committing a burglary. He was officially simple-minded, and he was on the roof with a companion. He was burgling this place. There was a policeman on the roof, and the one chap had a gun, and this simple-minded person said, "Let him have it, Chris. Let him have it." Now, what he probably meant was hand the gun to the policeman, but the gunman opened fire, thinking, "Let him have it. I'll kill him." Okay, bang. Now, because he was too young, he was given a custodial term, but because the older person who was not of sound mind, now he was executed despite a UK-wide campaign to release him. Now, my own view is that he probably should not have been executed, and there are other miscarriages of justice, and so if there is a death penalty, then this sort of thing can happen, and I'm completely opposed to it. But someone may speak of death penalty in the Old Testament era under Moses. Now, one might argue that in the dangerous age that they were in, a fledgling nation, then this might have been seen. Somebody may argue that this was a necessary step. Now, but in this modern age, we can. Personally, I feel it's safe to say, let's not execute people for whatever they've done. Let's not create any kind of precedent where somebody loses his life. Just if the person's committed a heinous crime, then deserving of death, just imprison him give him lifelong imprisonment. It may be a drain on government resources, but the innocent will not be killed, and that's my stance. Whether people will disagree with me on that, but there's my stance.
Have you heard of the Georgia Guidestones?
Not familiar with that term.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting that they've just recently completely destroyed the evidence of those things ever existing, except for maybe online. You might be able to find some things, but just recently they somehow interesting just blew up because there was some building discussion of those things online, And instead of investigating the crime scene, which they even had some kind of incidental video of, no one was arrested. And the crime scene the next morning, it was a night, the explosion happened at night. The next morning, they took bulldozers to it, which is not how you treat a crime scene. Um, the very next morning, right? Someone was very active in hiring an expensive crew to demolish the evidence. So the Georgia Guidestones are very much this green agenda kind of thing, where I even had a family member who goes on about how um, people need to die because there's too many people in the world. We need to preserve nature. So nature over people, animals over people. Animals are better than people, and all these mindsets, all these mass media constructs that have been um, ingrained in our brains. There's like let's call it a satanic 10 commandments in these guidestones with a specific number of the number of people that should be left. It's like, I can't remember the exact percentage, but I'm sure you can still do research online and find out what these things are. What I'm saying is that, and I'm bringing this up because what you just said, not having a death penalty, goes against this agenda. I mean, if you're also pro-life, that would also go against this agenda, and so on. I think Christians by nature, no pun intended, are also green. They're also very much about preserving nature, preserving life, and being respectful. So I don't know. Let me just say this. Speaking of nature, going back to the works thing, and if I'm keeping you, let me know.
No, not a
But
problem. No.
yeah, now that we're talking about Bible quotes, I'm kind of streaming Bible quotes below, so I'm kind of fired up. So going back to the whole works thing, the Bible quotes that stand out of my mind is something that really impacts me as someone who's dedicated about 2 decades of their life to a path of seeking ordination and floundering about the entire time and botching things up, maybe beyond repair. Yeah, it kind of kills me. I've been through theological studies twice, even abroad 3 times. So in all reality, 3 times. And I've come to realize through these apologist circles that I don't know half as much as I should when it comes to theology. And I've definitely not achieved these goals. So this whole idea of fruits kills me. So let me go to the first one, actually. We're talking about sin and, well, I mean, basically all we have is the concept of sin in Christianity. We don't have this praise towards doing the right thing because doing the right thing is a moral imperative. I think Christ illustrates that in different ways, that, you know what, you're not special because you do the right thing. You're just supposed to be doing what you're doing, and that's it. And if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and then that's a problem. And I don't see, I can hear as I say that the atheist objection to that. Well, you know what about freedom? On the contrary, Christ, God, gives you freedom. He gives you that choice. And if you choose to do the wrong thing, then that's on you. But he gives you that freedom. And that's quite clear too. So there should be no mistake about that. But the biblical quote for bad fruits is in Matthew 7:15. Maybe I should pull that up. But yeah, let me pull that up real quick. Matthew 7. I apologize. But there's a couple of different approaches, or a couple of different perspectives to the fruits. And also, let me say that judging people or judging things by the fruits is also important and emphasized. So this whole "don't judge me" thing is another mass media construct that has allowed and enabled and empowered all the stuff that's been going on. And I think this is the reason that we are where we are right now. This whole satanic do as thou will kind of approach to things. You know what? Not harming anyone, don't judge me kind of thing has allowed him to power all this stuff. So anyway, all right. So let me share Matthew 7 verses 15 through 21. 1 second here. Sorry, fumbling around again. Okay, let's see how you guys can see that. Is that coming in good? Yeah. All right. Okay. Are you a good reader? I'm not the best reader. Do you mind reading this for us?
Yeah. Let's see. Text is a little small, but yeah, I believe I can read it. Actually, I'll put my specs on. Actually,
is that better?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Beginning from which line? 15.
15. Yeah.
Okay. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree. Go down.
Sorry.
Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruits, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruits. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven.
Okay, and it's that. I mean, there's a lot of things to unpackage here in my mind. Mm-hmm. But let's start with this very last line. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of parts here. One is, here he's obviously stating that you need to do things, the will of God.
Yeah.
But he's also saying it's not enough just to say God, I believe in God and so on and so forth. Something that even the agnostics or the borderline atheists or the left and so on, I believe in the universe or nature, or I believe in his power. I don't know what it is. Or I am the power. My mind, I can will things and, and manifest things and make things a reality. Yeah. So even Muslims, right? Don't Muslims now equate Allah with God suddenly? Allah is God. Like 1 minute, Allah or God is not Allah. I mean, people that believe in God, the Jews and the Christians, they're not. They're going to hell. They're kafir. They're the evil people. But then when they're trying to promote Islam, all of a sudden Allah is God. They're using God instead of saying Allah. So, it's very deceptive, very diabolical there. But it's also a good illustration of this line. Not everyone who says Lord is actually saved. I mean, it can be evil. What are your thoughts on that? I'm sorry.
Well, doesn't St. James say that even the devils believe or something like that? Now, the devils would know that Jesus is Lord, and if it suited their purpose, they would say so. Now, but will they enter the kingdom of heaven? Nope. So, and this. On probably slightly different thoughts. What not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. This is telling me that Jesus is saying, effectively, shall we say, that he says who gets into heaven. He does. Now, wouldn't God say would be the one to say who gets into heaven? But it's the image that comes to mind is that the Lord, that Christ is like, shall we say, outside the pearly gates, for want of a better expression or whatever, and he says, right, you may enter, you do not. So he is saying who gets in and who does not. Now that to me sounds like something that God himself would preside over. Who gets in, who does not. That's just a thought that came to my mind.
Well, you're right. Where, as you said earlier, well, with the law, you don't know if you're coming or going or what's going
You
on.
don't know. Not with Allah, no. You
Yeah.
don't know.
And in
And
fact, sorry, go
sorry, I strongly object to Muslims hijacking Christian terms.
ahead.
When it suits them, they will say, they use the word God rather than Allah.
Mhm.
So some of them, they deliberately use the word God rather than Allah, just so that you cannot object to whatever they're saying.
Right.
And they will use terms such as heaven of the Jannah. Heaven is nothing to do with the Jannah, and vice
Right.
versa.
Thank you.
Now, the Jannah may be one of the 7 skies. It seems a bit nebulous exactly where the Jannah or the Jannahs, plural, actually are. But to use heaven is, in my view, a strictly Christian or stroke Jewish term. It's not applicable to Islam, and it would be and it's inappropriate for Muslims to use this term. And I found Christians, imitating this talk. It's talking about the Muslim heaven and whatnot. They're not talking about heaven. We have absolutely no idea what the heaven is.
Mm.
And if heaven is, if the Jannah passes away, then wouldn't heaven be passing away? So they're two different concepts, and they should be kept as separate.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. Yeah, I mean, when I do it facetiously, but I often wonder, by doing it facetiously, are people not realizing that I'm doing that and getting the wrong idea and being a bad influence? So, I guess that's another reason Christ condemns us being facetious. So, yeah, I mean, I also like how he mentions here, wherefore by their fruits you shall know them. Yeah. It touches on both. It touches both on Islam, on how they're using all the right words, or trying to use all the right words to manipulate, as you expressed. But if you look at their actual works, then it's quite evident that their belief system and their legal system and so on is absolutely evil. The same is true with, again, related, going back to the Satanic Church, the California Church, the Church of Satan, and how it has influence worldwide. I mean, the whole satanic thing, but their whole uncreation thing, and the works and all that, they have to break the commandments to be a Satanist. This is cult. So in the 80s, the FBI actually caught some of their members. I think it was in Tennessee or somewhere in the southeast, where I hate talking about this because it's so disgusting, so evil, so graphic, but just so people can know and understand, just in case they're not aware of this. So there were some of them that they were young. These guys, I think they were like teenagers even, that were going around kidnapping little boys, raping them, mutilating them, and one of them even was preserving their victims' private parts in a jar, and that's how they got caught. So, well, I'm saying this because at least one of them was also a choir boy. So in their community, they were nice. And this whole idea, if you're nice, then something Muslims say, or something the left or whatever label you want to use, they say about Muslims or Islam, it's nice, they're nice, and so therefore, it's okay, whatever they say and do. No, not quite. I mean, you judge them by their fruits, not their words, not the way they say words. I mean, a car salesman selling you a lemon is super nice. Insurance salesman, I mean, the list goes on. It has nothing to do with it. In fact, when I was an adolescent, I had a Satanist friend. He was my best friend at the time. And he let me in his inner circle, pun intended there, for some of those who might be listening sooner or later. You know what I'm talking about. He was one of the nicest people. People loved him. His father was a banker, very popular with the ladies. very gentlemanly, very distinguished, carried himself very well, dressed well, but a Satanist and my best friend. So why was I his best friend? Because he was nice, and at the time I wasn't, uh, as fanatical as I am now. Um, so, but at the end of the day, he was a Satanist and did what Satanists do. And so, with his friends, he tried to kidnap me one day. He also started beating on me with his friends jeering him on. All this satanic circle. And one of them, a young lady, um, invited me out to whatever one weekend. My father forced me to work as a restaurant owner. It was the weekend, and I was so mad at him. But she ended up getting arrested for a grave digging. So yeah, I mean, Satanists do what Satanists do. It doesn't matter, and she was nice too, super nice. You will never again the same description about her. So none of this stuff really matters. You'll know them by their fruits. Any thoughts on that?
Mm, well, generally, yes. You will. When you get to know a person, you will tend to see their fruits, whether good or ill, and if you don't see if the fruit is not immediately noticeable, the speech will give you an idea of just what fruit might present itself later. So, if, for example, these Satanists, as you know, that they don't stand for morality, then you have a fair idea of what could potentially be seen further down the road, and then you will see the fruits eventually.
Yeah. And so that brings us to the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
which is, you know what? You bear good fruits, you do good things, and you're a good influence, and you're saved. It doesn't say saved, but it does
Yeah.
clearly say if you don't, but
Yeah.
instead bring bad fruits, you're actively doing bad things, and then you will be cut down. Every tree that bringeth forth good fruit is, or bringeth not forth, that old English, bringeth bringeth not forth good fruits is hewn down and cast into the fire. So you're bringing bad fruits, you're going to get burned. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
get right. So it's pretty clear there. Pretty demonstrative of what happens when you're a bad influence. Now let me go to Matthew 21:19 here and see. There's also a different thing. Let me see. Sorry. About trees and fruits and so on. Okay. I got to make this smaller. Fumbling around. Amateur hour. That's the expression they use. Just came to me. I am an amateur. I don't get paid, so deal with it. All right. So, Matthew 21:19. This is now, I don't want to call it the middle ground. That's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
But we just talked about bad fruit versus good fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to talk about trees that bear no fruit, fruitless
Yeah.
trees.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to read that too, or do you want me to read it?
Sure, I'll read it. And when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it and found nothing thereon but leaves only, and said unto it, Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever. And presently the fig tree withered away.
Okay, so presently the fig tree withered away. My understanding of this is that God actively made the tree wither away. Is that
Yeah,
fair or
that's fair. Yeah.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that's okay. Forgive me for making this personal, but I don't mind speaking about myself even in a negative, um, because well, it helps me, but it also, if there's something to learn from it, and that helps others, then glory be to God. So, like I said before, I've invested so much of myself and so much of others. I mean, I had so much support in this process, this 2-decade process too. And because I fell short for different reasons, ego, um, not having faith, having fear. Fear was probably the biggest thing that kept me from following through on this calling to the diaconate. But also doing bad things. This ego, like, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter that I'm doing this sin right now. Because I have good intent, then this sin is okay. I would rationalize things over and over and over again. And so that didn't help either. But what kills me the most is that this entire investment for myself, literally invested all of myself into this process, but so many others, some of them that didn't even know me that well, invested in this, was made waste because I didn't stick to it. I didn't do what I was supposed to, and so on and so forth. And so despite all these blessings and all this experience and knowledge, I mean, I've been in so many different places in life that during historical times and so on and so forth that I need to share and to benefit others. I've fallen short of that. And so that's what kills me the most. When it comes to regrets in life, I do have a major regret. And that's not multiplying my talents. So I would warn other people, don't let Satan influence your life. Satan is very crafty and restless, or I should say adamant, determined to take us away from God, especially as we get closer to God. And so he'll do all kinds of things to do that. And he knows your weaknesses. He knows what strings to pull. And when you see that, just as God illustrates and asks of us in so many ways, put it to the side, let it go, and give it up to God, and have faith in God will guide you in the right path. He's, to this day, he's giving blessings. I feel like he's giving blessings despite all my failures and even turning my back on him at one point, and so on and so forth. So blessed are those who endure to the end. That's why that's become my favorite expression. Many feel like the end is coming, it's close. So, but even all the miserable things that we do in life, even our failures to do what's right or do what's good for others, God can be merciful. It's beyond words.
My own view regarding others is that we are all, no matter who we are, Christian, Muslim, Jew, Buddhist, or whatever, we're all brothers and sisters in humanity. And I feel that we should, all of us, treat one another, insofar as is possible, as brothers and sisters in humanity. So if your brother, your biological brother is, I don't know, say he like he needs something of you, then wherever possible, you help him. You say, okay, mate, I'll help you in such and such a way. And with a non-biological brother in humanity, you do likewise. And as far as possible, you be kind to people because they are brothers and sisters in humanity, as though they were your biological brothers and sisters. That's my view. That's my attitude. And wherever possible, be a servant to others. If you have something that some way you can benefit others, then by all means. I don't mean necessarily like give all your worldly goods to some person or whatever, but the way you would hopefully a person with a biological brother or sister will go out, will try to benefit that brother or sister, and same way treat your brother or sister in humanity in a similar way. Be kind, be decent, look for the best, look for his benefits, and this is really where a moderator should be. Where a moderator's mind should be thinking, he should be thinking, right, how can I benefit people in chat for the benefit of the majority of those in chat? Sometimes it will involve putting people on timeout or bouncing them, but it'll be done for the benefit of the general chat users. I think this is the right attitude, personally. So that's my attitude.
That is so well said. I actually have another Bible quote queued up, but I don't know if I want to share that after such a wonderful sentiment. But I think I will anyway. Are you up for one more quote?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do it. It's along the same lines.
Mm-hmm.
All right, would you like to?
Sure. From verse 5. I tell you, nay, but except ye repent, ye shall all likewise perish. He spake unto this also this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then said he unto the dresser of his vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none. Cut it down. Why cumbereth it the ground?
Okay.
And he answering said unto him, Lord, let alone this year also, till I shall dig about it and dung it. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
And that's pretty much reinforces exactly your own impromptu, genuine, personal sentiments, which were beautiful and inspiring. And you're absolutely right. And thank God nobody has put me as moderator, because unfortunately I might deviate from that. But yeah, I mean, I think this is quite beautiful, and that there's this back and forth with God. And this is yet another illustration of how God is willing to accommodate us if it is for, how would I say this? I want to say for the glory of God, but okay, that's a common expression, for the greater good. Maybe that's a fair expression. And so he's willing to listen to and accept and agree and grant our challenges sometimes. So here, going back to the tree that bear bad fruit or the tree that bear no fruit, both were condemned. Either they were cast in the fire or they were made to wither away. God is saying the same thing. Okay, well, you know what? What are you doing? This is a bad tree. Cut it off, pluck it out. But the tender is saying, God, I think this tree, there's hope. Sorry. It's just that sometimes when I see some of these apologists, it's quite moving. The degree of patience and just how they embody this Christian love for even the enemy. It's just amazing to watch. It's inspiring, especially when you watch certain people. I don't want to drop any names, but there's these common these regulars on these streams that will go on. I'm talking about the Muslims that are just absolute extreme tyrannical dawah and just say horrendous things and just outright lie, and just do this forever and ever and ever. But you'll see some of these apologists that are patient with them, and you'll see them reach them to some degree. I mean, it's just if not have them confess and they'll actually repent. I mean, that happens too. And from what I understand, some of those people end up even becoming moderators or even apologists themselves. So this is what's going on here. He's saying, God, please, I think this person has potential to turn around. Just give me a little more time. Just give me a little more time to work with them, to make that ground, that soil, that foundation that they're relying on worthy of you. Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're all God's children. Hindus, I mean, all the pagans, all the heathens, all the people that are brainwashed. I've got different labels for them. You know, at the end of the day, they're victims, and we need to recognize that, as so many apologists express that, and try to, with love, be patient enough to give them an opportunity that they can be saved too. Okay. So I said closing thoughts a while back, but I got off on this little tangent here with the scripture quotes, but I can't help myself. But going back to closing thoughts, is there anything that you'd like to leave us with?
Nothing that immediately springs to mind.
Okay. I guess this is a good place to leave it. I think what can I say? Thank you very much for your time, for sharing with us, for opening yourself up to us, and as a moderator and what you deal with. I think your sacrifice and your willingness to put yourself out there is wonderful and greatly appreciated. And as a moderator, by the way, thank you for all you do as a moderator for us viewers. The things that you add, your contribution, it's really helpful. Much appreciated.
Well, as I've often said to people, here to serve.
Amen. Yeah. So with that, please let me know if there's anything else in the added description so we can share with others. Keep fighting the good fight. Remember, there's a live stream coming up. There might be some fireworks. I don't know. Usually there are, so we'll see. And that's it. Take care. God bless, and thank you very much. Would you like to close us off with a prayer? I forgot to start things off with a prayer. Would you mind saying a little prayer for us?
I'm not the one for very long prayers, but I will say something brief.
Oh, sure.
Sure. Right. May God guide all of us here to correct thinking and right thinking, and may we all go out of our way for maybe all treat our the man in the street, our brother and sister in humanity, as we would treat ourselves, or even better. Now, and may God direct all of us, direct the way we all think, and may we become better human beings. And that's about it.
Amen. That's perfect. All right. Thank you, Phil. God bless you, man. Keep on. Janice and everyone in the chat, thank you very much. Take care.
Okay. Take care.